Welcome back to The Other Side of Change, only on the Black Star Network. My name is Jamira, Burley, and I'm joined with my brilliant co-host, Brea Baker, as always. And today we are taking a hard look at the deeply unsettling truth of the Trump administration and its campaigning to whitewash America and obstruct justice all at the same time. You know, he's an overachiever.
Yeah, overachieving in all of the worst ways, from gutting DEI departments to firing Black women from federal agencies and replacing them with the most unqualified loyalists. The strategy is clear: to erase Black influence, to rewrite history, and to rebrand whiteness as the only acceptable identity. This is not a drill, it is an administrative coup, and we are in the middle of it. Bad.
Yeah, so today we're talking what happens when the highest levels of government are actively working to erase us. What does it mean when whiteness becomes the official policy, not just the cultural norm? And how can we continue to fight back for clarity, strategy, and with a clear vision for moving this country forward? But first, we're going to get into the headlines.
Yeah. And the headlines are looking pretty bleak.
They're
A couple weeks
headlining.
ago, the United States revoked visas from 6 foreign nationals for their social media comments critical of Charlie Kirk. This comes on the heels of Charlie Kirk getting a posthumous Medal of Freedom, some very strange behavior between Erica Kirk, his widow, and JD Vance and President Trump, and just this consistent like deification and like putting this like and this pro-gun, anti-people of color man on this pedestal. But I think it's a dangerous trend that the administration is able to decide who gets visas, who gets citizenship, who has freedom of speech, essentially based on how much they agree with the administration. Again, this proves that this administration is not committed to free speech at all. They're committed to whiteness and politics on their terms. And we should all be very, very concerned and afraid.
No, extremely. Like the idea that the administration, out of all of the issues for us to focus on as a country, is focusing on whether or not someone have bad or good takes on social media about an individual who led his life with so much hate and disgusting practices, right? We were just talking about Dick Cheney, and these two men are very similar in their boat. And we as Americans have the ability to criticize our leaders and criticize people who are existing within our society, because that is what freedom of speech is. And I think if we don't stop this now, he is using this moment as a test, right? To see what we will and won't allow. And next, he's going to start coming for Americans' passports, right? We've already seen indications of that with the Secretary of State, Marco Rubio, alluding to that would be a tool within their toolboxes of trying to censor Americans by revoking our ability to travel and our freedom of mobility. So times are hard, but we have experienced harder. So buckle up and prepare to fight.
Yeah, we locked
Definitely.
in.
We are locked in. The first article that I want to talk about is the senators are forced to vote to prevent war in Venezuela. Because, Trump is out here just shooting down boats in the Caribbean for no other reason but a suspicion that they might be drug cartel, even though there have been no evidence presented to the general public about this. So you have the senators, Senator Tim Kaine of Virginia, have formulated a bipartisan effort to force Congress to vote on preventing Trump from declaring unilaterally war on a South American nation. And because that's the last thing we need, right, is to enter a war that is of our own making. And so one of the things that Democrats are moving with this bipartisan effort is to take up to make sure that the legislation has about 10-day waiting period to plan and to actually be able to vote on legislation that doesn't allow Trump to kind of take this next step, because it's only escalating. He's literally shooting down a boat a week. And families are being impacted across the Caribbean, and people are being scared to even travel in between island nations. And it's devastating. And it's a prime example that Trump is trying to use potentially a war as his tool to stay in office longer. And we can't allow that to happen.
Hell no. It's also just such a reminder that what happens domestically does get exported, because this is such like law and order, police, ask, I do what I want first, ask questions later, ask for forgiveness later. He's shooting down these boats using non-existent data and evidence, and then being like, oh, well, I thought it was this. And it's like, I'm sorry, what happened to due process? What happened to, I mean, you could take people in and question them. Like you're just unaliving, ending people, like what is happening here? And when do international checks and balances step in and say, y'all cannot do that. You cannot be the big bad bully of the world and expect to also have this moral authority. Like, oh, well, we were doing it in the name of insert value. It's just all around and very, very frustrating, especially because while he's shooting down boats, we still got a government shutdown. This government shutdown, that's my next headline, is now the longest one in U.S. history. And it beat the record. The second longest government shutdown in U.S. history is also a Trump shutdown. So talk about overachieving. He's going for all of these records. And again, it comes at our expense. But it's really frustrating because, they are still trying to blame Democrats, but Democrats have said, listen, we are not going to sign off on you cutting Medicare and Medicaid and healthcare to people when they need it most, but we will sign off on a bill that allows these government benefits to go through, and let's agree on that, and then we can still debate over these other items. And Trump and Republicans are like, no, we want it all or we want nothing. And so them trying to blame Democrats is crazy, because then you had a judge recently say, hey, no, there's discretionary funding at the USDA that is specifically meant to keep SNAP going, do it. And Trump is still like, maybe we'll fund half a month. Like, we need the government to get moving. Again, the delays in airports are only getting worse. The families that are depending on breadwinners who are bringing home money because they are federal workers and government workers is, like, families just cannot afford to go on a second month without pay. But that's what it's looking like because Republicans will not make it happen.
Yeah, I would like the government to be a functioning government. I would like the government to be open. But that being said, the Democrats need to hold the fort, and not give in, like not allow themselves to be crippled by this administration and their ability to be able to hold this administration accountable. Because in the long run, we know that it's only going to be more devastating for everyday Americans if they do not have a party who is willing to speak up and speak out in regards to protecting their rights and something as basic as getting food stamps, right? And all of this is happening while Trump is building a $200 million plus ballroom. And he now apparently wants to build an Arch de Trump to commemorate or to celebrate the 250th anniversary of American independence. That is next year. And apparently this is going to cost more millions of dollars. They're planning to have this sit across the Potomac River to the Lincoln Memorial. And it's just like, what reality are you living in? People are scraping by, are rationing medication, are deciding whether or not to keep the lights on or feed their families or keep a roof over their heads or send their kids to school. Like, all of this is happening while Trump administration is just blowing through our tax dollars. And someone said the other day
that in the bathrooms.
Yeah. And someone said the other day that if the government is shut down, if there is no programs being paid for, why are we paying taxes? Because I don't want to pay taxes to an administration that is throwing my money out the window to build an arch or to build a ballroom that is only going to be accessible to the rich and the affluent. Like, that doesn't benefit me or my community members.
Yeah, no, that's a whole fact. I don't even understand how this is, like, how the Trump voters are rationalizing this, because they claim to have voted for Trump because egg prices got too high and inflation was too crazy. And now you got gold sinks and renovated bathrooms, new ballrooms, none of which y'all are ever going to step foot in. Like, this is not like, this is for him to court more billionaires and more, foreign investors. Y'all not going to ever get to see this up close and personal. How are you making it make sense? I don't even know. But I think this is why we need to talk about how none of it does make sense. It's all just a part of the whitewashing. This idea that, like, a president like Trump wants to live in a mansion and have it be the most gaudy, ornate thing in the on the planet.
Just tacky. It's giving Vegas.
So tacky. Literally, I'm just like, what is happening here?
Like at least have good taste.
It's just the worst. It's like the worst episode of an HGTV show from people who just got some money. But all of it happening at our expense and in the name, and y'all are accepting it because he's also saying, that he doesn't want to see Black people celebrated. He's also saying that trans people can't play in sports, and like that makes it enough for you. So anyway, when we come back from the break, we're going to talk all about this whitewashing phase that this man is in and what it means for us, real people paying real tax dollars to this administration to have ourselves erased from the country that we built. But you're watching The Other Side of Change only on the Black Star Network.
Hello, I'm Isaac Hayes III, founder and CEO of Fanbase, and I'm here with a very important message. We are at a turning point in the Black community where we must have equity in the apps we use that scale to billions of dollars. But this time, we own the infrastructure, we own the culture, and we shape the future. And Fanbase is the future. Fanbase combines the free functionality of Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube into an all-in-one platform built for the evolution of social media and monetization. With over 1.4 million users, that's real proof that we are shifting the conversation of tech ownership and equity for creators. So right now, I want you to go to startengine.com/fanbase and invest today. The minimum to invest is $399. That gets you 60 shares of stock in Fanbase at $665 a share. This marks a turning point in Black ownership of social media. If we don't take this opportunity to own social media right now, we will always be customers to our own creations. And that can't go on. So once again, go to startengine.com/fanbase and invest today. We must own the platforms where our voices live, our stories matter, and where our culture drives the world. Thank you.
Welcome back to The Other Side of Change. Now let's talk about what it actually means to whitewash America. We're not just talking about replacing policies. We're talking about replacing people. Black women who were once celebrated for leading during moments of national crisis. Think of Dr. Corbett's COVID vaccine work or Susan Rice's global diplomacy have been systematically pushed out, erased, and replaced with loyalists.
This is no accident, right? Back in 2020, Trump signed an executive order banning anti-racism training at the federal government. Now in 2025, he has gone further, first led by the Elon Musk Doge purges, which had nearly 60% of senior officials across federal agencies have been terminated or resigned since Trump re-election, including senior employees. You have agency heads and high-profile appointees that are leaving so much institutional knowledge out the window. This is according to a leak of internal audit reports that was led by and published by The Intercept.
Yeah. There was also a Time article with the headline, "The President Who Resegregated the Federal Government," which says it all. That's exactly what we're witnessing right now. On Trump's second day back in office, he kicked things off strong and signaled to his base exactly what they could expect from him when he fired the U.S. Coast Guard Commandant Admiral Linda Lee Fagan, who was the first woman to lead a military branch. We dove into this quite a bit in one of our earlier episodes a while back about the more than 300,000 Black women who've been pushed out of the workforce since Trump took office and how white men had gains almost identical to our rollbacks. So again, we're being replaced. Black people are being traded out for those who better align with Trump and MAGA's vision of white male supremacy, not people who are more qualified, who have the training, who have the institutional knowledge, just people who are white and male.
Yep, and they're not being subtle about it at all, right? Like we are seeing so much writing on the wall. The Republicans have actualized their racist and sexist vision for the country. Only 2 out of the 98 senators confirm appointees to the most senior jobs in governments were Black. They're saying that the quiet part out loud and knows how long, and we have no idea how long this will continue to last or how we will continue to dig this hole that we won't be able to pull ourselves out of.
Yeah. And let's talk even more stats. We got 94% of Trump's 2020 judicial nominees were white. Only 2.7% were Black women, despite us being 7.1% of the US population. In 2025 alone, the administration has appointed over 300 new federal hires. 87% of them were white and 60% were male. Immigration from African nations has dropped 38% this year, but white immigration from Eastern European visas, those have doubled. Like, I mean, it couldn't be more clear what's going on.
Yeah, and whitewashing isn't just like tongue in cheek. This is being operationalized in broad daylight. We saw that in 2018 when Trump called African countries shithole countries. Now in 2025, his administration is attempting to restrict the naturalization of pathways for Black immigrants, especially from Haiti, Nigeria, and other parts of Africa, while creating new fast-track programs for white South Africans and Europeans. So we know who is welcomed into his version of America, and it doesn't look like Brea and I.
Sure doesn't. Sure does not. And let's not forget who else is being left out. At the EPA, Education Department, and HHS, Black women have been disproportionately fired or reassigned to meaningless roles, busy work. The Department of Labor's Civil Rights Division, completely gutted, replaced by an Office of American Workforce Integrity, whatever that means. I mean, they're just creating BS in the name of efficiency. Like, remember Doge and how they did absolutely nothing for us? And we're just going to keep
wasting money.
Yeah, Department of Defense is now Department of War. Like, they're just renaming things, wasting money, shifting things around, and nothing effective is happening. On the contrary, we're losing important time and important brilliance by these replacements.
Yeah, he's crippling the federal government. And I think this is the long game for him, right? To see, because even if he doesn't stay in office, how many years will it take us to undo the damage? And we are seeing this through surveillance. We are seeing this through propaganda. We're seeing this through the institutionalizing of white resentment at the highest level. And let's be clear, it is all a part of Trump's larger plan to make America in his image. For a refresher, here's a quote from Project 2025 criticizing the Biden administration. The upshot has been to radicalize the agency and create a hostile work environment for anyone who disagrees with the Biden administration identity politics. This pursuit of ideological purity threatens merit-based professionalism, advancement for staff who do not overly conform, hyper-politicized, and who should be nonpartisan federal worker environment. Now Trump is executing that platform he claimed to be undoing at the same time. He's just making it more comfortable for white people to exist without actually having to be qualified. So yeah, my, what is it called? My imposter syndrome has gone out the window since he's been elected.
No need for any of that. Yeah, thinking that we don't belong in any room when he's bringing some of the stupidest people into these rooms and giving them positions just because they look like him. Yeah, it brings us to the fact that we need to understand these systems from the inside. We're going to talk to someone who has been working on all levels of our government and campaigns and is now fighting to build something better. We'll be right back to talk with him after this short break. You're watching The Other Side of Change only on the Black Star Network.
Violent white supremacy is, quote, the most persistent and lethal threat in the homeland.
The greatest terrorist threat to the homeland is the homegrown violence stream, including hate crime committed on behalf of some kind of white supremacist ideology.
They are coming after everything in Black America. MAGA and Donald Trump are specifically targeting Black America. They are going after the money. Attack Black Lives Matter. Attack critical race theory. Attack woke, DEI. MAGA wants to defund Black America. This is a perfect example of their desire to completely degrade and de-emphasize Black people.
Welcome back to The Other Side of Change, only on the Black Star Network. Before the break, we started to lay the foundation of the whitewashing that the Trump administration is doing across the federal government and how it's having ripple effects in our everyday lives. And so we brought a really good friend of ours, Dorien Blythers, who is here today. He is the former deputy chief of staff for operations at the EPA, the Environment Protection Agency, and has entered this role with more than a decade of experience in electoral and issue-based campaigning. Dorien previously served as the public engagement program manager for a climate action campaign and credits his commitment to social and environmental justice to Howard University. Is that the original HU or the, and where he studied political science. He is now the CEO of Good Rebel. Welcome to the show again, Dorien. We appreciate you for joining.
Thank you. It's good to be back.
Yes, you have some chitlin juice on your chin.
Jamira's a hater, and we're gonna have to unpack this in another episode. But Dorien, it's always a good day when you're back. Chitlin love and all. But let's dig into this topic, because on a serious note, it's been so much going on. Obviously, you were someone who saw all of this coming. Because the work that you were doing before Trump was reelected was to make sure that we could keep him out and bring in other faces. You've been working on the inside and outside of government. What are some of the most dangerous ways you've seen this administration try to erase Black leadership?
I think, where do we start? I think that the first thing that we're kind of living through right now collectively is this disruption of safety net programs, right? Mm-hmm. We think about WIC, SNAP benefits with the government shutdown. We think about housing assistance, Medicaid and Medicare. This shutdown is an affront and is really an attack on the Black community. And what that means is that it's put, our leadership, our Black leaders against the rope in fighting for our communities. So we've seen them first, with the selection of this cabinet, which is really void of any Black leadership, unlike the last administration, which was the most diverse in history, but down to the policies, right? And people are policies. So when we don't have the type of representation that's authentic and that actually comes from our communities in these rooms, this is what we end up with. And I think it's on us to, kind of have each other's back in a season where we know we can't trust or depend on the federal government to, and really, we've never been able to with this administration.
Yeah, that's so true. I mean, that's one of the reasons why, I admire the trajectory of your career. You have worked on everything from climate to education to immigration. And what we've seen over the last few months, which is crazy that it's only been few months, and this idea that so much damage can be done in such a short amount of time, but it takes decades for the type of progress to really transform the lives of Black and Brown and those who are at the margin. The systematic removal of Black voices. We have seen this across every single institution at the federal level, as well as the defunding of the Department of Education, the hyper-visualization that is now happening through the Trump administration of pulling brown folks up off the street. What do you think this does to our ability as on the local, the national level, ability to kind of craft policy that continues to protect us?
Yeah, I think that what this does is it puts what matters most in focus. We talk about, needing to support one another in these systems in this season, but it's become more clear to us, and for me has put into focus the very immediate needs of our community. We talk about, simple things like access to food, access to healthcare. We're having to look around our own neighborhoods and figure out what are the ways that we can show up for the collective when the government's not there. And when we think about the policies that we have, I think that this also forces us to be hyper vigilant at the local level so that, people can actually feel this impact in their own communities, in their cities, where we still, in many places across the country, do have leaders who are having to now do double duty to both govern and serve the folks that they represent, while also pushing back and fighting against this federal government that is doing everything in their power to drain our communities of the resources that make us whole. So I always point to, this famous phrase, all politics is local. If we're not feeling that in this season, I don't think we ever will. So we've got to look to our left and our right at our neighbors and work with our local elected officials, and also realize that, it goes beyond folks who have an elected office and title. There are so many organizations and institutions, formal and informal, that are showing up for communities. We talk about food banks. We're looking at organizations at the local level like NAACPs and other newer organizations that are saying, you know what, we have our backs. When our supposedly trusted leadership doesn't. So staying local, I think, is where we're going to find the most solutions, and hopefully be able to use those models to replicate them in cities across the country where things are working well.
Yes. And I think we definitely saw that with this most recent election day cycle. I think people showed up for local elections in a major way. All eyes were on like mayoral and gubernatorial, but there was also a lot of hyper local positions like Georgia's Public Service Commission, California's ballot initiative, and many other ones, Pennsylvania's Supreme Court, where we're going to see that local impact. But what I love, so when Jamira was reading your bio and she talked about Good Rebel, which you recently launched, I love the way that you are bringing together narrative work and politics and social justice. So in your opinion, what role does narrative play in pushing back against erasure like the ones we're seeing right now through the Trump administration? And how can Black people reclaim our place in both the story and the structure?
Absolutely. I think that's a really good question and a timely one, especially as we think about these elections that just took place across the country. Zohran Mamdani, is, kind of this overnight political superstar. And really what kind of brought him on the map was the fact that he was speaking directly to communities in ways that they'd not seen an elected official or politician speak to them. He was doing ads in Spanish. He was bringing on, other, speakers and representatives, community leaders, to speak directly to communities in their native tongue. So they were seen in this campaign and in this movement in a way that they hadn't before. So when we talk about narrative, a lot of times, the narrative change work has to do with telling stories over and over again so that the narrative actually sticks, but ensuring that we have the right messengers and voices that can authentically speak to the change that we're trying to impart. Our narrative change work and the work that we've seen, that we've done over the past few years, always starts with the challenges and real issues that people face, because that's where we like to center our impact. And it's giving voice directly to those communities instead of speaking for them. When people feel like they're a part of a movement, they have something that they can invest in and own for themselves. And that's what creates movements. That's why young people have been at the forefront of these, movements for so long in the social space, is because we're closer to the issues, we're closer to the challenges, and able to communicate those in ways that are authentic, that are going to hit hard for us.
Yeah. It's so interesting you mentioned that, because I think one of the things that young people are learning from past generations is that we can't expect institutions to kind of carry our stories. We have to be the ones to tell our stories in real time and maintain those stories through our lifetime. Like, how do we pass those stories and the history of our lives on to future generations without expecting institutions to do that? Because we've seen throughout history, they will destroy our history. They will remove it from the history books, destroy and ban books. And so, it's one of the reasons why I'm constantly thinking about, like, how do we prepare people for the reality of the fact that Trump is probably going to double down, right, on being more sinister in his policies and practices, because he now sees that people are waking up. If they weren't woke before, they're waking up to the reality is that America is not affordable for them, that groceries are only getting higher, the jobs are being taken away. So how do we prepare people to be able to resist, even if that resistance is telling their story and over again, so people start listening?
Yeah, I think that the preparation starts first by ensuring that people have the basic needs. Their most basic necessities are taken care of, and that comes back to kind of the responsibility of communities to take care of one another, because we can't resist if food is not on the table. We can't resist if we don't have money coming in to our checking account. We've got to look at ways that we can show up for one another. And in this season, I keep coming back to just the necessity and how imperative it is that, we return to community, which, feels so, refreshing kind of, in the wake of COVID, and us all feeling so separated. But what that looks like in a lot of different ways, when it comes to telling stories, when it comes to, being able to even educate our communities on what's real and what isn't, helping them decipher that. I think it also means that we have to take ownership in ways that, ensure that the most honest and authentic truths are being shared and told. I just think about the fact that, we've seen an assault on media, and not just, Black voices in mainstream media, but even how our media is distributed. We have to ask ourselves, often now, like, can we trust these sources? It's why it's so important for Black and brown institutions, be them academic institutions, be it media institutions, storytellers, that we are owning our narratives and owning our work, and holding a very tight grip on that and not allowing it to be perverted by, these external forces that are seeking to steal, kill, and destroy at every turn. I think that that's where our power is. And by returning to community, by holding on to, these narratives and these truths, our challenges and the work and keeping it in our community, we have an opportunity to, fight back at every turn. And we've been here before. I know folks hear that all the time. But we've also got to be students of history and knowing that the Black community historically has taken care of itself. And this season is no different.
Love it. Love it. Love it.
I could listen to you talk all day.
Don't tell him that. It's going to boost his ego.
Listen, I'm serious.
I got time today too, so.
No, because I really do feel like you make it plain in such a beautiful way. And you had such unique experiences across the board that you like merge it all together in a way that feels really relevant and timely and like inspiring, because this is an episode that can feel really depressing. It's like, man, they're stripping us of so much, but we also have agency and we also have means of controlling our own story and also replacing these people who we see doing this. So where can the people find you and stay connected to you personally and then your work?
Absolutely. You can follow me on Instagram, Threads, and Twitter at Dorien Paul. That's Dorien with an E, not an A. And you can also follow us on Instagram and LinkedIn at goodrebel.co. Check us out. Follow the good work that
hire him. All the things.
We appreciate anybody that wants to lock in with us and get involved as we continue to do the work.
And hopefully, I hope that this moment really indicates that folks need to get away from listening to Ezra Kleins of the world and listening to people like Dorien, right? Like, we need to be better and do better. And it means listening to people who look like the actual electorate, who have done the work and not just talking about it in theory.
That's right. That's right. On
the
inside, the outside, and the other side.
On the other side, yes. Oh, Steve, we gotta hire you. That was good. On the side.
We'll just take that.
Go ahead.
You love us.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thanks for joining us.
All right.
And we'll take a quick break. You all are awesome. We'll take a quick break. You're watching On the Other Side of Change, only on the Black Star Network.
They said the quiet part out loud. Black votes are a threat, so they erased them. After the Supreme Court gutted the Voting Rights Act in 2013, Republican legislatures moved fast. New voter ID laws, polling place shutdowns, purges of black voters from the rolls. Trump's Justice Department didn't stop it, they joined in. In 2018, his DOJ backed Ohio's voter purge system, a scheme that disproportionately erased black voters. Their goal, erase black votes and political power. Yeah, that happened. These are the kinds of stories that we cover every day on Roland Martin Unfiltered. Subscribe on YouTube and download the Black Star Network app. Support fact-based independent journalism that centers African Americans and the issues that matter to our community.
Welcome back to The Other Side of Change, only on the Black Star Network. Now, we have said it before and we will say it again. Everything we are seeing right now with the Trump administration is about power. The power to name, the power to erase, the power to define who belongs in the story of America.
Mm-hmm. And Black people have always and will always resist erasure. From Harriet Tubman to Stacey Abrams, from the Black Panthers to the Black Lives Matter movement. We've never waited for a seat at the table. We've built our own rooms.
Say that. So what do we do now? We build. We fund Black futures. We organize. We speak truth even when it's dangerous. And we call out whitewashing every time it rears its ugly head on the news and policy and in our institutions.
Yep. So you've been watching On the Other Side of Change, only on the Black Star Network. And as always, until next time, keep resisting, keep dreaming, and keep pushing.